my true honor to introduce Ms. Philippa Lawrence from Jamaica, our very first speaker, the expert in international protocol and VIP management at the International School of Protocol and Diplomacy, former chief of protocol at the United Nations office at Vienna. Now, Philippa has a fantastic career. For the past 25 years, she has served as the protocol expert, career diplomat, and international civil servant within the United Nations, the Caribbean Community Regional Secretariat, and the Jamaican Foreign Service in the areas of international relations, foreign policy and external relations, political affairs, policy analysis and development, diplomacy, ceremonial protocol and event management, representation, coordination, and program management. Ms. Lawrence is the former chief of protocol at the United Nations office at Vienna, where she coordinated visits of royalty, heads of the state and government, and liaised with ministries of foreign affairs and permanent missions to the UN office at Vienna. She also arranged diplomatic and protocol ceremonies and was a key interlocutor for protocol arrangements for high-level meetings, congresses, and conferences. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Philippa Lawrence. Her topic will be the significant role of protocol in furthering diplomacy in the 21st century. Philippa, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Nicoletta. It is indeed a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to speaking this morning on the significant role of protocol in furthering diplomacy in the 21st century. So the outline that I will discuss today is setting the stage, definition of diplomacy, definition and history of protocol, the evolution of protocol and diplomacy, the importance of protocol and diplomacy, protocol as a tool of diplomacy in the 21st century, applying protocol principles to political and practical realities, and then I will conclude. So we have the definitions of diplomacy and protocol. And what we have here from the Encyclopedia Britannica is that diplomacy is an established method of influencing decisions and behaviors of foreign governments and peoples through dialogue, negotiation, and other measures short of war and violence. So as you can see, protocol is the essence of diplomacy that allows for peaceful resolution of disputes by the way people are treated and by what protocol brings to the table. Modern diplomatic practices are a product of the post-Renaissance European state system. Historically, diplomacy meant the conduct of official, usually bilateral relations between sovereign states. By the 20th century, the diplomatic practices pioneered in Europe had been adopted throughout the world, and diplomacy expanded to cover summit meetings and other international conferences, parliamentary diplomacy, the international activities and supra and subnational entities, unofficial diplomacy by non-governmental elements, and the work of international civil servants. And what we will see today is that this continues in the 21st century with a few modernizing techniques that makes protocol still relevant in the 21st century in diplomacy. So our definition of protocol in the diplomatic world is customs and regulations, dealing with the diplomatic formality, procedures, and etiquette. Also, protocol is recognized as a protocol to an agreement between states and an annex to a treaty. But we are dealing with the diplomatic formality, procedure, and etiquette. So the official procedure or system of rules governing affairs of state or diplomatic occasions is what the Oxford Dictionary defines protocol as. And as we heard yesterday, it's derived from the Greek word protokolin, which is a fusion of the words protos, first, and kola, glue. And it's referred to a sheet of paper glued at the front of a document to provide it with a seal of authenticity, a practice that serves as a reminder of today's letters of credentials. But as our speaker yesterday, Elizabeth Colton, referred to it as a first glue, protocol is the first glue that holds diplomacy together. The renowned authority on protocol practices and procedures, Ernest Satow, the term used to refer to certain established formalities and codes of behavior that have particular relevance to official and social occasions. So that was Mr. Satow's definition of protocol. So it's a world of multilateral diplomacy. Protocol provides a clear and transparent system that allows for all participants to an event organized, whether public or private, to understand the position they are being given in all aspects of their official functions. Now, the origins of protocol. So we have the emergence of protocol associated with the development of states in the context of international relations. The more global our world has become, the more relevant it is to appreciate the logics and reasons behind a protocol system. Protocol provides a framework to support international relationships and negotiations. The multiplication of states since the creation of the United Nations has given a renewed impetus to the importance of protocol. So rules of protocol have long pre-existed states. The need to negotiate issues and to find peaceful solutions to frictions arising out of territorial disputes and other international disputes is as old as humanity. The exchange of gifts between parties, the recognition of titles associated with a social and political position, the use of emblems to distinguish a group from another, and the hosting of social events have always been part of human relations and used as tools during negotiations. Envoys represented the interests of a group in negotiations with another group, and the immunity provided to these envoys have always been indispensable for communication between groups and parties. So we'll see this is all protocol. So the evolution of protocol and diplomacy. So we can see that there were traces of protocol in Egypt, in India, in China, and also in Greece. And they had organized a system of missions to manage the immensity of its territories. And messengers were widely used in ancient Greece. Messengers and envoys were protected through an unwritten but recognized system of immunities from both aggression and arrest. They were the first true diplomats of the Western world. And during times of war, they provided an ongoing means of communication between the battling parties. So prosperity of the city-states and the distances between them led to this development of a system of representation and reciprocity through the use of proxenius. And proxenius is the equivalent of what we would call an ambassador. And this proxenius was provided with a proxenia that establishes credentials, similar to what we have today. And then Northern Italy followed in the steps of the Catholic Church and established its first embassies in the 13th century. Ceremonies for the presentation of ambassadors' credentials to the head of state became norm, and other European powers saw the benefit of having permanent missions and ambassadors. And this spread to representations in Eastern Europe, Russia, and the Ottoman Empire. As the number of royal courts grew, so did the competition between ambassadors. Each ambassador wanted precedence, and a famous clash occurred in London in 1661 when a precedence issue was raised at the arrival of the carriage of the French and Spanish ambassadors, and there was a tussle as to who should come first, and war was narrowly averted. So what happened out of this dispute of precedence? We had the Congress of Vienna after the Napoleonic Wars. And the prime objective of the Congress was to provide long-term peace for Europe. Despite efforts, the decision taken at the Congress did not prevent wars and conflict in Europe, but it did give birth to a conference diplomacy as a tool for peaceful negotiations between conflicting factions. It was the first time in the history of diplomacy and protocol that a conference of such dimension was organized. Conference lasted 6 months and was attended by some numerous royalties, princes, countess, heads of diplomatic missions. And so because of the presence of so many kings and queens and princesses and other ambassadors and papal legates, an order of precedence was defined between diplomats according to their rank and the date of the presentation of their credentials. The countries also decided that country representatives would be seated according to the French alphabetical order, which is used in Geneva as an example. So the principles of organizing seating according to alphabetical order of country names is still followed today. If the English alphabetical order has taken preeminence, the French alphabet is still followed in conferences organized in Geneva and other French-speaking countries. And so, born out of the Congress of Vienna, in 1961, there was a codification of additional rules on diplomatic ranks, ranking among states, and seating at conferences, which became known as the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. And this is a hallmark of protocol and diplomacy, what guides protocol diplomacy today. As a result of these developments at the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations marked the emergence of a universal code of conduct established to govern multilateral and bilateral negotiations and international conduct, observed by all states in the diplomatic community and put all individuals and states on equal footing in the international arena. So protocol governs important areas which underscores the rules of civility and relations between individuals and states, including ranking of persons according to their official status, forms of address, and the use of titles to connote an individual's status in society and honors they have received. It includes the rules and procedures to be observed at social functions, such as dinners, lunches, and receptions, as well as the formalities to be observed at official events, such as royal ceremonies, funerals, even weddings, and also events such as signing of ceremonies and welcome and departure of dignitaries at airports and on official visits and events. So as you can see, protocol is the essence of diplomacy. It sets a stage for diplomacy to take place. So the global aspect of diplomacy has led since the end of the Second World War to the recognition by all states of the growing importance of protocol and diplomacy to find common solutions for problems which nowadays go well beyond the confine of national borders. We can safely assume that our ancestors in prehistoric times developed their own code of behavior through the exchange of gifts and the use of envoys. And then we have the multilateral diplomacy demands a renewed awareness of protocol rules, customs with a cross-cultural perspective. These well-established and time-honored rules allow nations and people from a wide range of cultures and values to conduct their business with dignity in an environment devoid of frictions. That is what protocol facilitates. Frictions can easily arise when one of the parties concerned does not feel treated with respect, and that is what protocol is, treating with respect. Today, the importance of global center see the emergence of protocol as a byproduct of the development of states in the context of international relations. Reality is that protocols have long pre-existed states. So protocol is a tool of diplomacy in the 21st century. One pre-existing condition for the materialization of protocol in international affairs is our parties to solve problems through constructive engagement rather than through the use of force. And as we can see in the current Ukraine conflict, we see where diplomats and heads of state and government are trying to use constructive engagement and protocol to avoid the use of force. Wars do not require protocol, peace does. Throughout history, we can see how diplomacy and protocol progressed when nations abandoned warfare in favor of negotiations. Peace demands that all parties are treated with respect and that their views are listened to in times of disagreement. Even though states are rarely, if ever, partners of equal political and socioeconomic strength, rules of protocol allow for the parties and their representatives to feel that they are treated as equals, which is very important. In a way, protocol neutralizes the possibility for human emotions to derail collaborative relationships between states by addressing such issues of pride, inferiority, and even physical size of those involved. So applying protocol principles to political and practical reality, diplomacy has witnessed a growing informalities throughout the 21st century. Protocol does not function in a vacuum, therefore it has been adopted to mirror broader societal norms. Digital diplomacy via email is one fundamental example where technological innovation has helped facilitate speedier communications and provide reliability in communications. Rules have been relaxed with the introduction of electronic communication and social media. Political and realities of the 21st century make protocol more complex. Political realities of relations between states affects invitees and seating, as well as orders of precedence. Inclusion of non-state actors such as NGOs, celebrities, is an important political player, makes their inclusion in official diplomatic functions complex. So in conclusion, we can see that protocol sets a framework within which diplomacy is conducted. Protocol defines the standards in which multilateral and bilateral negotiations are conducted still in the 21st century. Protocol also defines the parameters in which diplomatic, social, and occasions take place. And protocol is also the rules of procedures which are observed at official occasions. And protocol is a code of conduct which governs norms of diplomatic social behavior. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lawrence. That was a fabulous, fabulous presentation. It's really, really good to bring back the memories, what I learned long time ago at university about protocol and diplomacy and the treaties and the protocol being a tool for diplomacy. And it was just a really, really, really nice summary for all of us to share these thoughts. So thank you so much. And I'm turning to the audience. Same way as yesterday, you can post questions and submit them in writing in the chat box. And if we have time, we can always answer them. I'm not sure, LaDonna or Patricia, would you like to ask a question from Patricia?
Once again, Philippa, thank you so much for that fantastic presentation. One question that I did had, you brought up something that we hear a lot, or we're starting to hear a lot. I know a lot of us who give protocol presentations or used to give protocol presentations hear about the changes that have come with the use of electronic communication and just changing with the times, obviously. Are there some practical tips or just topics that you, in your experience, because I know you give a lot of lectures and just really are regarded highly in the field, that you are hearing more about, one, with just the use of using electronic means to address or host or deal with issues surrounding protocol?
Okay, thank you very much, LaDonna, for that question. Yes, it's a question that arises now with protocol in the 21st century. You find that electronic communication is being used a lot, and you find it being used in invitations. Now, instead of a formal card, you are being given a save the date, and then from a save the date comes the invitations. And then the RSVP is not a telephone number as we know it, but an email address. So that is one respect that protocol has evolved over the 21st century. Another respect is the third person note. As persons know, that is a note verbal. That is a note that is written in the third person and is exchanged between foreign ministries and embassies. And these usually are documents conveying a message which has a seal of authenticity on it, and it is usually 2 copies which are sent in the mail to the recipient, and then the recipient responds and sends back their response with 2 copies. Now all of that has gone. A note verbal is now being sent via email with a seal, an electronic seal, and that is how it's being communicated today. So we have these 2 examples, invitations and also note verbals, the communications. And you find even communications between heads of state and government. They are writing now using email instead of the usual letters that we usually see. Even letters of credentials are being sent electronically by email. So a lot has changed with the innovation of digital diplomacy. And so these are some of the examples that I would like to bring to your attention.
I love that. I love that term. I wrote it down, digital diplomacy. First here, people, World Protocol Matters online conference. I love it. Thank you. Patricia, do you have anything? I think we have time for just one more question here.
Okay, not really a question, but more of a commendation on what she's done today. And I just want to make reference, Philippa, to the US protocol program, which you always, lead on in terms of participation and training. And I've seen that program is really, really good in terms of people can actually learn from it. And I'm not sure how people can make access to that program. If you could share some thoughts around that. I know it's a chargeable program, but if there's a way we can harness at the back of that, for example, we could have a webinar where people could, ask questions, because we've had a lot of people come to us at the center, at the International Center, to say if we had any information around that program. And I just thought this is the right time to collaborate in terms of really giving it a big push and let people really understand the beauty and the benefits of that program. So I'm looking at a very constructive way we can move forward after this conference. And I'm sure Nicolita and Ladina will agree with me in terms of actually pushing that strength at the back of what you're doing and to see how that could help other professionals, especially, people who's done less than 5 years in industry, wants to learn more. And I just think it's a good way. Thank you for sharing all of the information.
Thank you very much, Patricia. Yes, I do moderate the UN protocol course for the United Nations Institute for Training and Research. And it is an international program which caters to everyone. And it caters to diplomats, to practitioners, it caters to the persons in public sector, corporate world, it caters to UN staff. And I'm sure that I could discuss with the institution a way in which we could broaden and possibly just have webinars offered to participants who may not want to take the course or who may not have the capacity to do the entire course, whether financially or otherwise. And I could see and discuss with them and get back to you, Patricia. It is really a foundation course that is very important.
Thank you so much for offering that. Thank you.